Mark. Sometimes it's other people. Every time it's a different rep.
Got it. Thank you.
Just go through me. I'll take care of everything for you.
You're set. You're set, Dominic.
Sure. Okay, is the YouTube is on, ready to start, Florence and
Yes, that's correct.
okay, great. Perfect. So first thing I do with these, welcome everybody to the Queens CB1 Transportation Committee meeting. I think it's a relatively large agenda for our June meeting. First thing I do is take attendance, so I'm going to do that now. And it takes me a minute or two as I switch over to a Word doc here. So when you hear your name, please tell me if you're here. And if you're not here, let me know also. Daniel Aliberti.
I am definitely here.
Thank you. Kian Betancourt.
Here.
Thank you. Nice meeting you the other night.
Oh, likewise.
Antonella Di Severio. Antonella? Okay, I think she just said she might not be here yet. Adam Fisher Cox, the famous Adam Fisher Cox.
Hello, I'm here.
You are here, thank you. And a new member to our committee, I believe, and there are a few here to follow down the line, as well as Kian, Shehanez Hamde. Is Shehanez here? No. Christina Lastris. Yuma.
Here.
Hey, you. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you. How about yourself?
Good, thank you.
Excellent.
Amin Mahedi. People seem to always sometimes, straggle in at the 6:40 mark. So perhaps I'm doing this too early, but we have a big agenda. Tom Ryan, I think I see you here.
Yeah.
Welcome back. Hello.
I'm here.
Thanks. And then the chair is Dominic Stiller. I am here. And the vice chair, Nas Magudis, is here, of course.
Yep.
Okay.
Hello.
Are there any other CB1 members that aren't on our committee but that are here? I see Juliet Ayab.
Ayab.
Yab.
I'm here. It's Quinella.
Who's that?
Hi, Dom. It's Quinella. How are you?
Hey, Quinella Williams, my neighbor. Anyone else from CB1 here?
Yes, Patricia Maecha.
Hey, welcome.
Thank you.
Mahecha. Okay. Anyone else going once? Going twice? I'm just looking around. It's two full pages of attendees. Great. So we've got some rather significant presentations today. One is by the MTA and one is by the DOT. So the first one is, I'll just read it here. The upcoming Broadway Astoria NW ADA project located at the intersection of Broadway and 31st Street. It is anticipated to mobilize in June 2024, which sounds like now. Information will be provided regarding the scope of work, customer benefits, project timeline, and street level impacts. And so I don't know the precise presenters, but I'll make notes and I'll let, I think Megan Molina, you'll take charge for MTA, I assume? Megan?
Oh, sorry, I was trying to unmute. So Kana Irvin from the MTA C&D team is going to lead us through a presentation. I know that she was having some audio issues and I think she might have hopped off. So whenever you're ready, I'm going to kick us off. And then when she comes back on, I'm going to let her take over. So it'll be Kana and I.
And since I don't see her, can you spell Kana's name for me, please?
Yep, it's Kana. Is her
Last-
first name, and her last name is Ervin.
Irvin, thank
For
you.
the chair, she's coming in now.
Thanks.
Great.
Hello.
Hey, Kana.
Sorry, I'm so frustrated. I don't know why. It's volume is not working. Okay, I'll share my screen. Doing this on my phone though.
Kana, I can share the presentation if that makes it easier, and you could just.
Sure, that's great. Thank you.
Okay. Dominic, are we good to go? Do you want us to start? Okay, awesome. So I think most folks know me by now, but for those who don't, my name is Megan. I'm an Assistant Director of Government and Community Relations for New York City Transit. I'm joined by my colleague, Kana, from MTA Construction and Development. She is going to be taking us through this presentation, and we're also joined by members of the project team for the Broadway Astoria ADA project. I will let them introduce themselves as they are called on for any support throughout the presentation. So I'm going to share my screen. Kana will take us through, and then at the end, Dominic will hand it over back to you for Q&A. So just give me one moment and I'll bring up the... Can you see that?
Yes.
Yeah, thanks, Megan. Okay.
Take it away, Kana.
Great. Well, thank you everyone for your patience. Sorry about that. My name is Kana Irvin. I'm here representing MTA Construction and Development, and we have our wonderful project team. We have folks from AECOM, and we have folks from Judd Lau, and of course, Megan, who you all know very well. So we're really excited to share updates with you about this ADA project. For some context, this station is part of ADA Package 5. I'll just go back. This station is part of ADA Package 5. The MTA awarded this package in December of last year. This is our largest design build bundle of ADA upgrades that we've awarded to date. And this builds on the success of the last, or actually our very first bundle of ADA upgrades design build that we've completed earlier this year. So we're on a roll. This is part of 38 stations currently in construction for complete ADA compliance. And so far we've completed 4 this year. And this is just part of the MTA's commitment and investment in ADA accessibility. In this current capital plan, we have over $5.2 billion earmarked for ADA upgrades. And this current capital plan actually has an unprecedented number of ADA contracts, about 5 times the amount as the previous capital program. And we are on our way to announce the upcoming capital program, which I'm sure will have a whole myriad more of ADA improvements. Thank you. And next. Wonderful. So we have an overhead view of the project area. It's just much easier to visualize the project with this map. So here we have the new street to platform staircase. There's an existing street to platform staircase on the other side of 31st Street. And we have 2 new street to platform elevators in fare control areas. Next slide. This is the project scope. We'll just dive right into it. So those 2 new street to platform elevators you saw on the previous slide. The existing stair is to the Astoria bound platform, and we have 1 new street to platform stair with a new canopy, just meaning that we're going to be building that green metal canopy over that staircase, and that's going to be to the Brooklyn bound southbound platform. Complete with platform tactile edge strips, those yellow strips along both lengths of the platform. And in this package, we also create new ADA raised boarding areas on each platform. There are also some minor infrastructure improvements in this package. So the station, like I said, will get 2 new fare control areas. And the canopy is going to be extended over those new platform areas. Again, we're going to be slightly extending the platform to make room for these elevators. And just station environment improvements. We're going to be replacing lighting. That's something we try to do, these light touches whenever we come and affect a station. We're going to be adding new lighting on platforms, improving lighting in the staircases, in the fare control areas, and we're adding new help points in the unpaid section of the new fare control area as well. Great. So we have just a before and after photos. Again, just really easier to visualize. So this is the before. We have this food town here and this flower stand on the sidewalk, and then this is going to be the after image. And during these contracts, access to Foodtown will be maintained throughout the entire duration of all of the construction phases. Next slide. So this is one of the new fare gates that we're going to be adding. So currently this is just an emergency exit, but at this location, we're going to be adding a new fare control area. Next. Great. So we're just going to flip through some slides. I think the next 4 are going to be showing some of the draft renderings. They're really amazing. I use the station a lot, so I'm excited for these changes. So each fare control area here, we can see they will have 2 new turnstiles, a MetroCard vending machine, that help point that we mentioned earlier, and that emergency exit / the accessible doorway that folks can tap into. You can see that on that far corner. Next slide. Great. So this is the view of the Astoria-bound platform staircase, the elevator, and that fare control area. And the next rendering on the next slide, we can see, so that left side, that's the Manhattan-bound platform. And that will be getting an entirely new staircase and fare control area. And the northbound platform on the right side, that will have the staircase open for regular service with the addition of the new fare control area. Next one. Just have a street level view. And the next slide is the platform view. Awesome. So we'll go to the construction timeline next. So we'll walk through some of the phases here. Currently, we're coordinating with local utility companies, DOT, and just other agencies as needed. That's the phase we're in now. And of course, this coordination will extend throughout the entire lifetime of the project. In about mid-June, we're going to start installing barriers for maintenance and protection of traffic. We abbreviate that to MPT. And shortly after we install MPT, we're going to be commencing with demo, excavation, and utility relocation. And that phase will occur from, as soon as we install MPT until the end of the, about late June 2024. Or wait, I'm so sorry about that. Until the end of the project. And the project is slated to be substantially complete in Q2 2026. And just to address the asterisk here, so why are we coming to you all when the design is not yet finalized and we don't have these hard dates to give you? The reason for that is I'm going to allude back to the first slide when I talked about the design build nature of this package. And this is a design build package. What that means is this represents not just the way that we're modernizing our physical infrastructure, making that ADA compliant and bringing it up to code, but we're also modernizing our contracting process to deliver these projects better, faster, and cheaper. We're not doing it the same old way we used to, so we're gravitating away from design bid build. Design build has a lot of benefits when you compare it to design bid build. It allows us to build more cost efficiently, less disruption to customers, and it also gives us a great deal of flexibility. So in some other previous examples of ADA projects, because the design is not finalized, if we run into just unknown factors, like in this one elevator construction, there was a utility pipe that we didn't expect there, because when we dig in New York City, which is a really dense environment and difficult to build in, there are oftentimes utility reconstruction that we have to do, and sometimes we just don't know what's under the ground until we dig in there. So because we were able to have that flexibility and we hadn't designed it fully, we just were able to move the elevator a few feet, and we were able to work around that unforeseen circumstance. So that gives us, it's just a lot of benefits here. We're really excited about design build, not just in ADA, but in other projects. We are the contractor submits design in phases of 30, 60, 90, and 100% completion. So currently design, I think design has been submitted for 60%, but we are aiming to get 90% drawings from the contractor in mid-June. And when we have 100%, of course, we'll have a much clearer idea. But that's just why we're coming to you and we don't have these hard dates yet. Next slide. Thank you. Great. So we're going to start talking about those MPT phases I was mentioning. There are two MPT phases in this project. This first one is going to be supporting the utility reconstruction or utility relocation for travel impacts. So on 31st Street, travel is flowing normally. And you see those dotted red lines along the side. That represents the temporary parking removal. So when we set up our work zones and our staging area for construction equipment, we do that on the side of the road. And to make room for that, we will have to temporarily remove parking and just temporarily tweak the streetscape for these phases of construction. So again, like I said, we have some landmark here. So we have Futon on the left. We have the parking lot, the municipal parking lot on the other side of the street. Access to both of those will be maintained at all times. The work zone on that east side of 31st Street will include a temporary protected sidewalk in the roadbed, again, to work around that work zone. And the existing northbound and southbound Q102 bus stops, those are also on the top of the map. Those will be maintained, so those are not going to be affected. Next slide, please. Wonderful. So this is the second and final phase of MPT. So this phase of construction supports the stair and elevator construction. For traffic patterns, so 31st Street, again, traffic is flowing normally and that parking is temporarily removed on both sides. And Megan, if you just flip back to the first and the second, you can kind of see just where our work zones are shifting. Yeah, go to the second one. Great. So that temporary protected sidewalk is still in that roadbed on that side of 31st Street where that municipal parking lot is. And like I said in an earlier slide, so the existing station stair entrance, that will be maintained. Of course, we need to have one means of egress via the stairs while we build the other one. And again, in this phase, both bus stops will be maintained. Great. Service impacts on the next slide. And we also have, folks from our design build team who can answer some more technical questions after we get through this slide. So first, in construction and service impacts, all for your notice. So the majority of this construction will occur during regular DOT approved hours from 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. There will be some evening work required during these two phases of construction. And that is typically done to minimize impact to rush hour traffic. So I think we have someone from JEDLA who can speak to this evening shift shortly. Whenever this evening work is required, we will notify community well in advance. And we do have a variety of ways to minimize noise. We do our absolute best to stack some of the noisier work during the daytime, so it's not disrupting residents. And when we do that, like whatever that work we consider to be noisier, we always make sure that we're using some sort of noise mitigation. So that could be noise blankets or sound blankets that deaden the noise, or it could be some enclosures. It just depends. And again, when we have the design 100% finalized, we'll have a clear idea of what that can look like. And typically the second shift is used to do a lot of cleanup and just preparation for the following day's work. We're not going to be doing any blasting here. It's really just rock demolition. And, oh, sorry, wait, my computer froze. Okay. Wow, I'm having a lot of issues tonight. Sorry, guys. So the existing exit-only staircase on the northbound platform, that east side of 31st Street, that will be shut down for 9 months to convert that top portion to the fare-controlled egress. So right now it's the emergency exit only, and we're going to be converting that into just a more conducive entrance and exit for customers. And I apologize. I think earlier I said that that's going to be maintained the entire time, but I was incorrect there. During the construction of the elevator and the other ADA improvements, particularly the platform level improvements, like adding that ADA boarding area and installing the tactile edge strips, because those are platform level, we can't have customers entering and exiting the train when we're making those improvements and leveling the platform. So we will require some limited platform closures during that phase of construction. That will be some weekend work during the weekday, during weekend work, and then during the weekday as well. So when we know those exact weekends and times during the weekdays, we'll let everyone know. For the contract, I believe we are allowing the contractor some limited closures. So it's not going to be major construction during those weekday hours, just really localized finishing work like patching, painting, and electronics testing. That will just, I think customers will just experience some additional headways in between trains, but the station will not be shut down. And for weekend work, we limit the closures to one side per month. So customers will likely need to back ride, so bypass the station for one stop and then return in the opposite direction. Next slide. Great. So we have the project email and hotline. We create that for every project. So this is public. Please feel free to send that around to folks, add that to your newsletter or website. Just please note that the hotline is for non-emergencies only. And of course, you can always reach Megan. And we'll just skip to the next 2 slides, which will cover some of the technical aspects of those MPT phases I went through. And I think now we can kind of turn it over to questions from the public about some of this construction work, and we can have folks from our design build team answer.
Okay, thank you. I'm just looking at this last, drawing here. I'd like to hit you with a few questions myself before I hand it over to the rest of the committee.
Go ahead, yeah.
I often go last, but I think these are quick ones. So it's about that, you say 9 months to alter the exit-only staircase on the northbound side. So first of all, I would just imagine that the density on the southbound side dwarfs the northbound side. Do you have any information about how much more busier, if at all? I imagine it's a lot busier, the southbound than the north.
I don't know off the top of my head, but I'm happy to go to folks at stations who likely have like records of swipe ins.
So like, well, for example, why is I guess you're just doing that for convenience, right? You're changing the existing stair, the exit only stair, because it's there. You don't feel there's a need to have an additional exit only stair on the no, actually, to exit, you're absolutely right. The northbound is the side with the most density, right? You probably get most people coming home and.
Yeah, I mean, we're adding a stair. So we're adding a means of egress, like an entire new stair, and then we're converting that exit only, emergency exit only, into a fare control area.
Can you put the first slide up as we talk?
Yeah, sure.
Please. And then, so that's good. I just want to look at it as we go around with questions if other people don't mind. And then my last question was about what's your limited or your standard of notification the public when you're going to have some of these closures? You know, especially the contract closures, which sounded quite impromptu. Will we get 72 hours notice? Will we get a week?
We try to at least at a minimum give you at least 2 weeks notice, depending on the moving parts of a project. It could be at least 1 week. It really depends on the nature of the impact. So whether it's a 24/7 bypass of the station that could last for a month, you know, that's something that I would aim to give notice out well in advance. We're talking about at least 30 days out. If it's, you know, something that maybe came up as an emergency and we have to do a lane closure or something like that, then it really could be upwards of a week. So it really just depends on the nature of the impact. Anything really severe that lasts for a long time, the more notice we aim to give you. So that's communication that will come from me, and that would be in regards to service changes and also any street level impacts. So whether that's, again, like a lane closure or a shift in our maintenance and protection of traffic or some combination.
Okay, thanks. Do any other members of the committee have any questions for the MTA team?
Dan Aliberti has a question.
Dan.
Yeah, hi, good evening. I have 2 questions.
Can I just say, if other members do have questions, please put up your hand so we can see the order. Please go ahead, Dan.
Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot to do that.
No worries.
Yeah. So elevator that goes from the platform down, does it stop along the way, or does it go straight from the platform down to the street?
Someone from the project team want to address, or I don't know, Kana, if you have the answer.
Yeah, it goes from street to platform. Because
No
we're
stop
adding
in the
those
middle.
because we're adding the fare control. Well, there's that fare control area like right at the platform level. Megan, maybe you can flip to that.
Yeah, I was
Wow.
asking actually for page 2 to be shown.
So it's like it's the
Page 2?
platform, but it's going into the fare control
Oh.
area at the platform level.
Okay, so you get in the elevator at street level, you get
Yes.
off at the platform, you pay your money there, you pay your fare there, and then get on the train at that level.
Yeah. Well, yeah, Megan, can you flip through the next slide?
Is that
Just-
correct? And that goes for both
Yes.
all elevators?
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah, next
Okay,
slide. Well,
I have a question. Now, so there'll be no elevator from the platform down to the mezzanine area. Is that correct?
Correct.
That's correct.
Okay. Now, if a person is using a wheelchair and they get off the train at that stop, at either direction, north, south, they get off the train and they go to the elevator to go down. Now, sometimes elevators are out of order. Now, this person can't go down to the mezzanine and cross over and go down another elevator on the other side. They're stuck on that platform. Now, their next option would be to go to some other station and then cross over. And the question would be, at those stations, if they're using a wheelchair, is there any way to cross over? Or do they have to go all the way down to the street at the other stations too? What is the situation there?
sure. So that is correct if one of the elevators is out. And I think our standards for transit elevators is very high. I think we have about 95% service level. But if it is out, then they will have to go to a different station. We have a really, really informative tracker that is absolutely kept up to date on our website. That's the Elevators and Escalators platform. So you can go at any time and you can look and you can see, okay, I'm about to get to this station. Is the elevator in service? Is this escalator in service? So that's a tool that we direct people to use.
The other stations on that line between there and Ditmars at the terminal. And my understanding is that there are no stations that you could go down to the mezzanine, cross over, and go up on the other side and go back. At all of them, you would have to go down to the street. Is
Yeah,
that
I
correct?
mean, if they did have to do that, I mean, that's why we have those agents in those booths, and that, I mean, you would show your Metro card or Omni, and they would let you through that paid area because they could see the history of your Metro card.
I'm
So that's
talking
what
about a
happened.
person I'm talking about a person in a wheelchair.
Yeah, I understand. So I'm saying that if you would have to re-enter the system, so if you'd have to exit to the street at a different
At another station.
or any
At-
station, yeah, and you
any
had to re-enter because you couldn't cross over, like you're saying, that is what you would tell the agent in the booth.
Okay. Well, my question in that case is that if these are ADA, Americans with Disabilities Act renovations or modernizations, this seems to be a huge oversight. To have a person in a wheelchair going to some other stations instead of being able to go down to a mezzanine, cross over, and go down and have an option. A second look. Us folks who can walk, we have plenty of options. We're talking about a person in a wheelchair now has no options except to go to some other station, and it may not be all that easy for them.
I absolutely agree, and in this exact scenario, I think we're on the same page. That's really the aim of all these ADA packages, is to get many, many more options for people so that we're shrinking the number of stations that are accessible, like shrinking the gap of the number of stations in between so that they have those options.
I'm talking about the station itself being more options on that station. If I don't use a wheelchair, but if I did use a wheelchair, I wouldn't want to get caught up on the station at 11:30 at night on my way home. and having to contact the station person and contact somebody else and somebody, I'm stuck on that station. And it wouldn't be a good feeling, and it wouldn't be a safe situation for a person in a wheelchair under that circumstance. So if we're talking about ADA modifications, renovations, modernizations, I would want more than one means of egress from that platform.
I mean, maybe someone from Judd Law can expand on the design, but we'll, definitely heard what you're saying, and I love that you're advocating for folks in wheelchairs. I think that's amazing. That's something that the MTA really cares about. So I'll take that back to our accessibility unit and see if I can get you any other answers. But at the right now, maybe someone from Judd Law can respond.
Yes, I can do a quick explanation. I mean, the main thing is that obviously from a engineering perspective and cost perspective, all that has been taken into account in the final design. There's some significant hurdles to cross to get an elevator down to the mezzanine in this station. So that's why, for this station specifically, the elevators were put at a different location, which included adding additional Ferrorace locations. So adding the stairs down the street, again, give some other opportunities to people getting in and out of the station. But the main concern would be adding elevators to get solely down to the mezzanine would have provided significant hurdles from the engineering and cost perspective here on this specific station.
So it's a money consideration, and what it comes down to is money in this case. Is that what I'm hearing?
It's a money consideration. I'll also say that if we had our chief accessibility officer, something that he's noted is that folks in wheelchairs do sometimes comment about how it's just much easier if there's elevators with a direct access like that. In other stations where we design it, where there's
I'm not denying it's better. I'm not denying that's better.
Elevators going from the street to the mezzanine and then the mezzanine to the platform, it's just like another thing they have to do to get to the platform. So that's something that I've heard from accessibility advocates. So I just wanted to throw that 2 cents in there.
I'm not denying that it's easier to go from the plat all the way down to the street. What I'm talking about is getting stuck up there and not having an option.
Yeah.
Whereas non-disabled people have options, and we're talking about
correct.
We're saying separate but not equal.
Okay.
Is what we're talking about here.
Dan, can I add to your question, please?
Certainly.
So, 2 points. One, it is the first time that I've seen the whole design is kind of flipped around, where instead of taking the people to the turnstile, they're taking the turnstile to the people by eliminating that stop at the mezzanine. The counterpoint of that is if a person in a wheelchair does have to switch to the other side, and people often do for routing and so forth in typical stations, there's no more, as we've seen in other elevators in the N line, there's no more ability to go down to the mezzanine on an elevator, cross over, and then enter the other platform from above. So you're now making the people in the wheelchair cross the street anytime that happens. I understand from Judd Lau's comment, we'd like to get your real name. Perhaps we could. Is your name Ola Eaus? Sorry if it is. Sorry, I'm assuming it's not. But it's
no,
KFQL.
Yeah, it's something crazy. My name is Killian Tiernan. I'm the project manager for the station.
Tiernan. So you're the project manager for the station.
Correct.
PM for Judd Lau for the construction of the station.
Correct.
For the station project. So then to drill down into your question, Dan, which I'm kind of curious about, and sorry to hold Adam and Kian up, is does this satisfy ADA requirements without that second means of egress? I don't know. I mean, I know that they're putting in ADA compliant staircases.
It does. Killian, do you want to expand on that? But I mean, it does satisfy.
Yeah, no, if you don't mind that question, Dan.
No, I think we appreciate the concern of going across. I think, again, just from a construction and engineering perspective, that's one of the unfortunate parts of all these projects for the MTA is that typically they're working with an existing station, so there's a significant restrictions on exactly what can be done, and so I think the MTA is making a push to say, it's not, potentially it's not going to be perfect, but we are doing a large effort to try to gain access for people with disabilities. An important part of this project too is that that there's maintenance included on these elevators. So these elevators being installed, again, as Kana was mentioning, they're all going to be on, an MTA's central dispatching monitoring system. So the maintenance of this is going to be tracked, and also if an elevator is out, there would be real-time notification to the maintenance team to get somebody out there to take care of whatever issue is causing this concern.
Killian, we
So-
understand. No, we understand. Dan's point, if I could expand on it, is more, does this satisfy ADA? And you guys are saying that it does. I'm sure that it's
Yeah.
a great area.
Right.
And what I would like to see, if possible, Kana, is the plan. I don't know which page it is, but it's the one that kind of shows how the elevators relate to the existing mezzanine. So I think you had a plan, and I thought it was page 1. It's not. Can you just thumb through there and put up the one that shows how these new elevator towers relate to the existing mezz? Not, it would be an overhead plan, ideally.
You talking about this here, or?
No, I thought okay, so this doesn't to me show the existing mezzanine. It's on right on Broadway, right? The existing mezzanine is right on Broadway, so we're well south, right? South is to the left. So we're well south of the existing mezzanine area here.
Correct.
So Dan, these new towers are about 100 feet south of Broadway on both sides of 31st Street. And as you probably know, where the existing staircases are to
Yeah, I
the
know. Yeah. So
mezzanine.
we're talking a wheelchair person has to cross in the middle of the street or go all the way up to the corner and then all the way back. And this may meet the letter of the law, but it certainly isn't meeting the spirit of the law.
Yeah.
In that this is separate but not equal.
And your feedback is noted and it's appreciated. I think just to summarize, our goal here is to make sure that we're reducing the number of stops that are inaccessible between stations. To Killian's point, it may not be perfect right off the bat, but this is a huge feat in order to bring both of these elevators to the station. In a world where we can go back and expand on this, I think MTA will look at all possibilities to do that. But again, from an engineering perspective, every single station has those unique hurdles that are going to cause those restrictions for us. So this is a starting step for us. And we will definitely take back your feedback, because I'm sure there are people on our own accessibility team that have raised those concerns, but we have to start somewhere. And so this is what we're able to start with. And we'll make sure that what you're saying and what's being echoed by other members is shared with members of our project team who are not with us tonight, and also with the system-wide accessibility team.
Are you saying that these plans are not written in stone, that they can be changed between now
No, they're
and
not going to be
start of-
changed. I'm just saying in a world after this, once we've brought with this project to the station and we've completed, perhaps things will be different down the road where maybe we can overcome that obstacle. But for the time being, for this right now, we cannot. So this is what we're working with. This is what we're going to be bringing to the station. And like I said, to Killian's point, it's not a perfect solution because we can't deliver that point that you're talking about, that you're raising with us tonight, but it's a starting step for us to be able to minimize the gaps between stations that are not accessible.
To that point,
I
Dan,
accept that, but I must say that I'm not looking for perfect. I'm looking for people not to get stranded and not to have to go way out of their way and all that inconvenience. It just
Correct.
doesn't taste good in the mouth as an ADA modification.
But also with respect to these being new elevators that will have a fresh lifespan, and also the maintenance improvements that we've made along the way in terms of making sure that our elevators remain online, our expectation is that people are not going to find themselves in that situation as often as you might think.
On an everyday basis, if I wanted to cross from one side to the other,
that's not something we would
still
want
would
for
have
any
to
of
go
our
to the street.
customers to
Still
do.
have to go. Everybody still has to go to the street. Right.
Okay, so I'm really appreciate your points, Dan. I almost want to suggest, Megan, I'd love to have a walkthrough of this station just to see the real estate that was passed over, not judging, not making changes, but just for information. The distance between the mezzanine and the new towers, the distance between the new stairs and the towers, and see what are the priorities in the neighborhood and by the MTA that did not allow this these elevators to be installed. For example, we just saw a great presentation of your new install on the RM train, where you've got the elevator going down below grade, very, right to the mezzanine and the platform, and it's you were able to put an elevator in the curb lane to access both the mezzanine and the platform there. So I guess it's a matter of priorities here, but I'd be interested to.
Station are you referring to?
I'm referring to it's the N train at 34th Street in Steinway, 34th Avenue in Steinway. I would call it Steinway. I call it the Steinway Street Station.
Oh, sure, Steinway. Yeah, the one that we
presented on that 2 months ago, I believe.
Yep. Yeah. But that also just speaks to every station environment being very unique and having to work with what we're able to. So that's why there are two different plans.
Well, to echo Dan's comments, I think that other plan may have been more ADA friendly than this one, if I may say so. So I'm going to now move on to other committee members, Dan. So I'm going to move on. Thanks so much for your comment, and thank you, Megan. So Adam, you had your hand up next, and then Kian.
Yeah, just a quick point of information. It was mentioned earlier that there aren't any other stops along the way. I think the point's well taken about the inconvenience of having to switch platforms here, but I just wanted to mention that Astoria Boulevard does now have elevators that go to the mezzanine. So if this elevator was out, the rider would go to Astoria Boulevard and be able to shift over there, which to Daniel's point is definitely not ideal, but that station is available there. And I would just urge that the 95% be improved even more, so that hopefully these elevators aren't out of service and are repaired as quickly as possible if that happens. But that option is there for anyone who is curious about that.
Thank you, Adam. And I think to your point also, and I just want to express this to everyone, if you're out and about and you see that there's an outage at any elevator in the district, in the neighborhood, and you communicate that to the community board, Florence will be able to tell me that right away, and I'll be able to check on that. And there have been situations in the past, and I don't know if she's still here, but I saw that Shauna was on, and I want to give her a lot of credit for this, but we were having escalator issues at Ford Square, and she kept hearing from constituents. And she shared that with us, and we were able to really condense all of that feedback that we were getting on an almost daily basis to be able to present this to the folks on the maintenance end and say, this is what we're hearing every day, day in and day out. This needs to be rectified, to the extent that we've been able to see some improvements with making sure that the escalators are remaining in service, or if there is an issue and they come out, that they're being brought back as soon as possible. So the sooner you communicate that and share that with the board and it's sent to me, I can make sure that the right folks are out there so that we're not having these disruptions for anybody who needs the elevator.
Okay, thank you. Adam, are you finished? And we'll go on to Kian.
Hey, yeah, thank you for the presentation. Just a quick question. So I know that slated to, I believe, happen this year or next is going to be the Queen's Bus redesign. And I believe that you have the Q102 being replaced by the now Q105. And I believe as part of that, there is a stop at Broadway at 31st. So I'm just wondering how, if any, impact to that would happen here as a result of the construction work.
That's a good question, and I think at the risk of having to bring up multiple screens, I might not be able to give you the exact answer right now, but I will take it back to the Queens Bus Network redesign team. They're generally aware of any sort of projects that would come into contact with any sort of route changes, so that would already be accounted for. But generally speaking, as we kind of come down from all of the public outreach that we've done since the beginning of this year, and we dive back into the details, we've gotten a lot of feedback from Astoria residents, Long Island City residents, when it comes to the routes that traverse the area. So I will make sure that question is posed to them so that it's up top of mind when they go through the feedback that they've gotten. So yeah, I won't be able to get you an exact answer right now as to the future of it, but I can tell you that things like that are already accounted for when it comes to different types of projects kind of merging at one point.
Got it. Good to know. Thank you.
No problem. Thank you.
Okay, that looks like all the questions from
Hey,
the.
Don, I have a question. Sorry, I'm not able to raise my hand for whatever reason.
Sorry, who's speaking? Is that Dan?
This is Hugh.
It doesn't pop up for me either. Perhaps we could stop, or we can leave it up. You, please go ahead. Thanks.
Yeah, no worries. So my question is, in the event where an elevator is not working and the rider has already exited the fare control area, they would have to repay in order to re-enter the area. Is that correct? Is there a way we can have a help point or a way to notify the station agent that could come in and bring the rider back with inside the platform without paying?
Yes,
Yeah.
typically in the new fare race locations, there will be CCTV and communications to the ticket booth, and so the ticket booth controller can actually open the gate from their booth and let the person back in that event. And I believe, again, typically with MTA messaging, if they do know that it's out, they will have that posted as often as they can to try to prevent anybody to make it that far before realizing that.
And that's on top of station agents who are roaming the station a little bit more freely now that they're outside of the booth. So something like that can be caught ahead of time.
Understood. Thank you.
Thanks, you. Any other members from the committee have any questions? It looks like no. So, Dan, your hand is up again. Another quick comment?
Yes. Yeah, I have a quick comment. I just thought of something else. The fact that the elevators are in the middle of the block. Usually you have staircases or elevators at the corners where you have entrances to the train system. On an inclement weather day where there's snow on the ground and things like that, we're talking about a person in a wheelchair having to go down the street. And whether people have shoveled their snow or not shoveled their snow, that may be another situation for a person in a wheelchair as well. Whereas if you were at the corner, there's certainly much more probability of the snow being cleared away, or there may be more options in that situation.
We maintain our entrances. We're responsible for 3 feet from the area. So we would
all the way up to the corner.
It just depends where the entrance is. So
well, if this is 100 feet from the corner, you're going to shovel
so what I'm
all the
saying
way up
is
to the corner.
Depends. If there's snow in front of the stairway, it'll be clear. If there's snow in front of the elevator, it'll be cleared. If you're finding that it's not clear, we
I'm
stay on
talking
top of
about
that.
the stores or houses between the corner and the elevator entrance down the block. Those
that's
property
certainly the
owners may or may
responsibility
not
of-
shovel their snow.
That's the responsibility of that particular property owner.
And they are supposed
Right,
to do
but-
that. I think so.
Well,
Maybe
as
we
far
could,
as
maybe
planning,
Killian,
you're relying on other people. for
maybe
the
Killian
accessible.
can make a comment about why we decided to put the elevators here. I think that might solve some of this or answer your question.
Yeah, I think
Well,
again, it's an existing issue, right? So the way the existing mezzanine is constructed, there's no good way to put an elevator in there to then get up. You have to get onto the control side of it, the unpaid side, and then you'd have to get off, go through the fare control, and then go up to the platform. So for this specific station, this was the design that the engineers, landed on, and this has been, thoroughly vetted and worked on for years here. So, we definitely appreciate the concern here, and I would agree with it as well. But I think just for this perspective, this station, this is where the design landed. So
in my
that's
comment,
pretty much what we
I
got
wasn't
on it.
expecting. In my comment, I wasn't expecting, something different as an answer. It was just an additional concern that if I were a wheelchair user, I would have, because maybe the store owners or people would have garbage pails outside, or snow they didn't shovel, or obstacles, something between the corner and the elevator. Just to me, it's an unusual place to be placing it.
Dan, if I could once again support your comment by asking Megan. Megan, obviously you've got maintenance, real estate that the MTA is responsible for. It's probably directly related to any entrance to your subway station. It's probably at all the stairs that go up to the mezzanine, and now you'll have an obligation to clean the additional stairs that go up near the elevator, as well as having to clean the area outside the elevator. So is it possible that your maintenance area may stretch from the furthest end on the south to the furthest end of the north regarding public egress? I don't know, but it's an interesting question on what the MTA obligations are. Are there any at all for snow cleaning from the MTA, or does it all land on the merchants?
So for us, again, it's 3 feet from the station entrance. So wherever the station entrance is
For the lowest step, the lowest tread, 3 feet.
Correct. From like that, right, or like that concrete landing pad, if you're at the bottom of a stair, it's 3 feet from there. Anything else is subject to a property owner or city sanitation.
Wow. Seems very minimal, doesn't it? Because if a wheelchair is waiting for this elevator or two, they're probably going to not fit in a 3-foot strip, never mind get to it. So it's possibly something.
They're city sidewalks ultimately. So that's part of where that comes from, needing city agency support to make sure that our sidewalks are kept clear.
Right. Interesting. Okay, Amin has a question. Amin, welcome, by the way. And I noticed Shahnaz and Amin, I marked you present. Thank you for attending. And what is your question?
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for seeing so many people in Transportation Committee. Thank you, Dan, that we are having a good discussion here. I'm sorry, I joined a little late, so I didn't see the presentation. But the Dan's question is very valid. The MTA is not going to clean up that much area. And why can you just redesign it? Like all other subway station has that their elevator right on their station, and if we are coming from that far, that's not going to make sense. They're going to be trouble. It is going to be not going to be comfortable for those disabled people that we are trying to help. So why we are not redesigning and keeping that to the station like that we have on Astoria Boulevard and all other places? What is the problem? I just wanted to know that. Thank you.
So the question is, why are the elevators being built in those particular locations?
Yes.
So, Killian, do you mind, recapping, some of the challenges as to why we have to land in this spot versus somewhere else?
Yes. I mean, the simple answer is that to have elevators that go to the mezzanine and go into the station at the street corner, you would have to then add a second set of elevators to go from the mezzanine up to the platform, which is, again, adding to the issues with potential maintenance and adding to the cost of the project. And the biggest issue with adding anything at the intersection is that for this specific station, this mezzanine is very tiny, and the structure itself cannot support elevators entering here. Your stairs at every corner access into the only locations where you could put an elevator attaching to the mezzanine while not impeding the existing roadway. So you basically do not have a way to put elevators there to access the mezzanine. So that's pretty much the main issue here. Again, elevators then tying into the platform create a significant impact to the width of the platform there. So there's a lot of concerns with the design there to add elevators at that specific intersection. I'm unfamiliar with the Astoria station, but certainly, it's just different, I would assume, in the fact that the mezzanine is probably a lot larger. We already have significant issues with the size of the mezzanine here. There's very little room for the services needed for the station. And so again, everything fitting in has been vetted for multiple years, and that's where the elevators were designed to be installed.
So thanks, Killian. You're saying that because this was set in stone years and years ago, it's a little too late to be having this discussion with CV1.
Oh, Dominic, that's not what he's
No,
saying.
yeah.
He's saying that there are
Oh.
infrastructure problems with the size of the mezzanine that doesn't allow us to implement elevators that could serve as a full stop.
Say that again?
There are infrastructure challenges with the size of the mezzanine that doesn't allow us to install full stop elevators. That's what he's saying.
But excuse me 1 second. I noticed in the 710 station, I believe it's on 90 this Junction Boulevard, they have a one, in 74th Street station, they have one. It is on the sidewalk, like, the way it's not very wide and, bigger, but still they have it there. So why we are not considering something like that? So it's going to be benefiting.
So
like
that's what Killian was just explaining. So every single station is different. You really can't compare one to the next, let alone on two different lines, the 7 line versus this line that's, two different worlds in the transit system. What Killian was explaining is that there are operational, like logistical challenges because of the size of the mezzanine that won't allow us to be able to install an elevator at that corner curbside that you're typically used to seeing. So that's how we ended up with elevators at this particular location that are going street to platform versus street to mezz to platform. So it has to do with the station and the existing conditions of the station environment.
No, what I'm saying that, I believe that, the measurement of the same area, I'm not comparing with the other trend or something, but, the city law should be same for everywhere, right? So that the space amount that you're talking about, and he's talking about, is the same amount space that they have there, but how they made it and why we cannot make it in Astoria here.
I mean, please, everyone, let me talk. I mean, what exact station are you talking about? I mean,
what is that?
What exact station on the 7 line? Are you talking about Queensboro
No,
Plaza?
Jackson Heights, 37 Avenue.
74.
Roosevelt Avenue on 74th Street.
Okay.
I believe that they have the one that I saw that there. Yeah.
Yes, no, there are many stations, and we saw a presentation, a month or two ago about a new elevator at Steinway Street, which hits the mezzanine and the platform, and it is very central to the corner. Dan, I think we are going to move on. If you have one quick more comment.
I just want to say, I think we need a walkthrough.
Well, and I was going to say, so Dan is requesting a walkthrough, which I wouldn't mind, and I also would request, could the plans in PDF be sent to Florence?
So we always share the presentations. I believe I shared it about maybe a half hour before meetings start. I'll double check to make sure that it's gone through. So everything that you've seen tonight will be shared or has been shared with Florence.
I'll forward them to the committee right now.
Thank you, Florence.
Sure. Is there any way to get the plans? Maybe not all the MPT plans, or not the mechanical, electrical, and plumbing, but just the layout plans of the specific.
Yeah, so you can take a look at what's there. We didn't really go over it in specific detail, but there's 2 slides at the end that I think might give you a good sense of what we're working with.
Okay, perfect.
The drawings.
Okay,
in addition to the renderings.
So, sorry, I've got my Google Maps up here. I've been looking at the corner. So, Megan and Kana and Killian, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for your presentation. Thank you for your consideration for all of our comments, and we will see you soon.
Thank you.
Thanks very much. So, our next presentation will be probably as lengthy, so we have time considerations. The next presentation is by the DOT in a public realm in a calming corridor or cycling corridor. I've seen it with 2 different names. Improvements for 31st Avenue. There's been a lot of buzz about this, and this is a presentation that the DOT will also be showing on June 18th for changes on 31st Avenue. Just like the last presentation, the MTA didn't vote of approval or a letter from us. The DOT also doesn't in this presentation to coming. So who is, I know Nicole, by the way, if you're still here, good to see you at our committee meeting. We're honored to have half of the DOT in the audience. And we like to see Ted in his Gillian outfit. Is it right? Gillian's Island, whatever it's called. Anyway,
Gilligan, more of like a captain, a generic
oh, there
captain.
you are. Right.
More of a captain, less of a skipper.
Okay, gotcha. Sorry, apologies. So Nicole or whoever you designate, please take it away.
I'll be taking it away, Dominic.
Hey, Joseph.
How's it going? It was really nice to meet you last week. And you know, we're going to be going through a lot of the same process that we did last week. Anyway, I'll start off now. Good evening, everyone. My name is Joe Patty. I'm the borough planner for Western Queens. I'm from the Queensborough Commissioner's Office at DOT. Tonight, I'm joined by members from our Public Realm and bike team. And they're going to be showing you our designs for 31st Avenue. As you said, the Public Realm and cycling corridor improvements that we're going to be bringing to the area. This is part of a months-long process that we've been doing for this area. We started last year where we had a survey for Astoria. Over 90% of the respondents were self-declared Astoria residents. We had tens of thousands of responses that helped inform the beginning of our designs. We had public pop-up workshops on-site on 31st Avenue. We had our public workshop last year in the fall, and just last week we had our open house to showcase the design that we're going to be walking through with you today. So we're going to be handing it over to our Public Realm Bikes team. I believe Ted's going to be starting off with the presentation.
Yes, I am. Thank you all. I'm going to try to share this. Paula may have to help me, but I think I'm going to be able to pull this one off. So we had a workshop last week with the community. Good to see a lot of the same people here. Let me see if I can make this larger. How do I do that? Does anybody know how to do that?
Try Control L.
Really? I like that. Didn't work. All right, well, I'll stick with this. Maybe there's somewhat, hold on. Can you guys see it okay? I'm just gonna go through it then. All right. I'm gonna skip over a lot of this. My name is Ted Wright. I'm joined by a bunch of team members. Jessica Kronstein is gonna help me out. She works for the Public Realm unit. I run the bicycle unit. And we've been talking to a lot of you for years. Paula Rubira, who's also here, did a bike lane on 31st Ave a long time ago. But today we're really excited about this because it's Bike Network and Public Realm. We're both trying to enlarge an open street and give the East-West a strong bicycle connection. So without further ado, I will go into it. This is what we're going to go over, basic presentation, background. Then we're going to talk a little bit about the vision, and then we're going to get into the proposal. We've had a lot of support from electeds in the area. It's been great to see that support for bike lanes. I think it's a tribute to how popular not only the bike infrastructure that we've built in the neighborhood, but how much people are changing the way that they drive or don't drive in Astoria, but also the open street and the need for more open spaces. It's really great to see all the support. So hopefully we'll be able to answer some of your questions today. Here's where we are in the process. We're basically right at proposal. So we've done a lot of community engagement in the middle here, and we've gotten into the proposal stage. We shared at a workshop, but we have a really cool vision here. What we're hoping to do is actually install this or a portion of it this year. So, yeah. Here's the background. It's a Vision Zero priority area. Mostly commercial along there. It's not unheard of to have a neighborhood like this that has a lot of commercial activity on it, where we see a lot of crashes. And this is something that we try to address. The other thing that is a particularly important point from my perspective is the fact that you don't have a lot of east-west bike lanes. As the bicycle network grows, we need to have more infrastructure so more people can use it. Crescent Street has been a tremendous success. We keep on seeing more and more people use the Queens Bridge, whatever it's called now, the bridge to Queens, the big one that is. And so that's what we're talking about here. I can go back over some of the stuff later, but I'm going to keep going. Past improvements, we've done a lot out here. It shows the great support and the good working relationship that we have with you guys and a lot of other people in the neighborhood. Really excited about that painted bike corral. It's a local artist, really cool, showing what DOT can do if given the resources. We did an open street that you're going to hear more about today in 2020 along 31st Ave. We've done a lot of bike lane projects. It's been a little while, so we're coming back strong today, and we'll talk it through with you guys. Now, a little bit less positive, but shows you a little bit of the impetus for this project is the fact that we do see a lot of crashes here. You guys know probably better than me. Actually, maybe not, but relatively high crashes for cyclists, especially in Astoria. It's something we want to address. It's something that we're addressing today. So when you look at this, like when I see multiple cyclists killed, multiple cyclists injured, that's a really big deal on one street that has a bike lane. So we need to do better. A little bit more context here. This is the whole area, and I think that that's kind of what we're speaking to right now from a cyclist and walking perspective. It's not all just one street. You're going to hear about one street. We work one street at a time, but overall we have a problem here, and we have to start dealing with it from a design side, and that's what we're doing today. Cycling is way up, and I don't have specific numbers on Astoria. I'm sorry, we could get them, but I think you guys probably know there's a lot of growth here. We're seeing a lot more people biking. The Queensboro Bridge itself keeps on going up year after year. Overall, the city is seeing massive cycling growth. And a lot of the delivery workers that are out there, some of us like to complain about it. I certainly hear a lot about it, but I just right off the bat that like these are people who work in the city, and we have to be serious about their safety as well and try to do our best to educate them, etc. But this infrastructure isn't only for those of us out riding our bikes on the weekend. A lot of people are using this for their primary transportation. It's great to see, but it gives you a context of what we're talking about today. All right. Now, we've done a lot of community outreach. We did an online survey with 2,200 responses after our workshop last year, around our workshop last year. We also did that giant workshop. Hopefully you guys were able to come. It was in September 2023. A lot of people showed up. We talked a lot about what you're going to see today in this proposal. Also really important to stress that we did merchant surveys where we've gone out and talked to the people along the corridor. I have a little bit more information on that in some following slides, and then some pop-up workshops. DOT, I'm not just saying this, we've kind of gone full tilt as far as outreach, and we do a lot more. If you had seen this slide 10 years ago, we didn't really have any of these skills. So I'm really happy about that, and I really think that this design shows some of this. All right, getting into what the surveys were that we heard. Something that I'm hearing that's kind of interesting about Astoria, to say the least, is the number of signals, the number of people complaining about people running traffic signals. That's not necessarily something that we can do anything about at DOT, but it definitely shows that we need to kind of take a step towards controlling the automobile a little bit more and giving people a little bit more of a chance to walk so they don't feel scared that a vehicle is going to jump through a red light, basically. The other one here, lack of protected bike lanes, that was number 2 on the survey. That's a safety concern as well. The intersections with most comments that we received, these are kind of like the big ones. Easy to tell. You probably would have guessed them right off the bat. Newtown, Vernon, Crescent. These are the big streets, and these are the ones that we're going to be addressing with this proposal. Merchant survey, what I was mentioning earlier. It's funny, we do these a lot, and nothing really stands out so much here, except for the fact that, like, even with this kind of small scale commercial along the corridor, we're still having a lot of the same curb access issues that we see in some parts of Manhattan. That or higher density areas, could be anywhere, other parts of Queens as well. But I thought that was surprising and something to note. Whoa. So at the in-person open house, we heard a lot of good things. This was just last week. We haven't adjusted a lot here, but we basically are hearing a lot of support for this design. We brought this to you today with very clear ideas of the design. Paul will be here to answer direct questions, and Claire, who's also very knowledgeable on such subjects. And then we also heard a lot about greenery, daylighting of intersections, traffic calming along 33rd Street, a lot of extra stuff here. But once again, this is kind of what we heard at this workshop last week. And now you're seeing the exact proposal that we showed there. Goals. Number 1, calm traffic. We don't want to just let traffic run wild on 31st. We're trying to think about this differently. We want to calm traffic. We also want to expand public spaces. What you see here, Broadway at 21st on the lower right corner, it's kind of a different way of looking at traffic. Like, let's put traffic in its right place and let's make sure that it's safe for pedestrians and safe for bikes. And then number 3 is expand the bike network. I think it's pretty apparent from that map I showed earlier that east-west is lacking, whether you bike or not. Pretty easy to see. Here are the design elements that you'll see today. Traffic diverters. I might use that. What that means is basically we're stopping vehicles from using a corridor in one direction. That's do not enter sign here. There's the key for those of you who drive. Bike boulevards. We did this in 39th. Is it street? Sorry, I got that wrong. But 39th up in Sunnyside, we've gotten pretty good reception, limiting vehicular access to allow for better bike access. Curb management. All of our plans have curb management in them, allowing UPS, but also more heavy deliveries for restaurants, etc. Shared street. That's another thing where we'd like to make it so everybody feels comfortable there. Street furniture and greenery, looking at bike racks, and then community programming that Jessica's going to get into later. So here's our concept. I'm just going to go over this really quickly. There'll be another chance to take this in. But really quickly, here's what it is. We have the purple line here, the dark purple, are one-way conversions. We're going to take 31st Ave and we're going to turn it into one way at various locations. This arrow represents the direction that it will go in the future. We're basically the overall design idea here, and one that we've checked out with our engineers, is that we don't need vehicles moving down 31st the whole way. We want to provide access. There's a street grid here, but we don't want excess vehicles on the corridor, and we certainly don't want them moving quicker. Then the other aspect here that I will show is the green line here green line here, those are going to be protected bike lanes. And then the centerpiece of it all will be an expansion of the existing open street there in the middle. Okay, now nuts and bolts. You have three basic areas the way that we see it along this corridor. Vernon to 30th. This is a mostly residential area, a little bit of industrial, access to waterfront. That's something that we want to pay attention to. There's shared lanes there now. Those are, given the fact there are some larger vehicles there and the street is wider, shared lanes are not the best design there. 30th Street to Steinway. Here's where we have the open street that plays along with some of the commercial uses. We have an open street there on Saturday and Sundays, and this is what we're trying to build off of with newer themes. Now from Steinway to 51st, this is going to be, we're going to talk about this later. This isn't part of the proposal tonight, but what we're talking about is a different kind of area. We do want to get to it. We do want to get to Newtown Road as well, but we're biting off the western side this evening. But basically on that end, it goes primarily residential with some auto-oriented uses, and then the schools that we're going to spend a little bit more time doing outreach on. Central issues. Vision Zero priority area. We need to make sure that it's safe for the kind of neighborhood that surrounds this street. We are not seeing the kind of level of safety we would like to see on a neighborhood commercial street or a residential street. Existing shared and conventional lanes are often blocked by double parked vehicles. This is a real problem with our non-protected bike lanes. They're not really bike lanes. They become double parked lanes, which is not safe for bikes. Then illegal U-turns, speeding and cut through traffic. That's another thing that we're trying to address with this proposal. And then chronic double parking, lack of loading spaces, and that is also something that you're going to see. Here's what I referred to earlier, but this I'm going to get into a little bit more. This is the underpinning for our presentation this evening. Existing, 31st, two-way, the whole way. What we're going to be doing with this project is we're going to add traffic diverters, meaning we're going to change the direction of traffic, and we're going to stop one direction of traffic at these 5 locations here. I'm not going to read them off. I am going to read off this, though. The street will go from Vernon, it'll be westbound, from Vernon to 21st, eastbound from 21st to Crescent, and then westbound from Crescent to 31st, and then eastbound from 31st to 33rd, and then from Steinway to 36th, it will be westbound once again. The idea here, I'm going to some of the designs, the idea is to limit cut-through traffic, make this street about pedestrians, and allow the street grid that you're going to see in a second here to pick up some of the heavy traffic. It's not actually that heavy. It's going to actually move some of the traffic. If people need to get somewhere, they're already really not using this street, but they can use a different street next door. This is why we feel comfortable with this design. There's plenty of east-west corridors already here. This is not a major aspect of transportation here. It's not a heavy number of vehicles. Most of the vehicles are already trying to get to local businesses or trying to park. So what we're doing is we're just limiting these guys to get to these locations, but we're not going to have extra people speeding down the street or using it for a joyride. I don't know, but we want to try to get people off of 31st. Does this make, actually, you guys can ask questions in a second. I'm taking too long. I'm going to keep going. Here's the proposal. So basically we're going from what you see up here in a section is 2 parking lanes and 2 shared bike lanes that are often blocked by double parked vehicles, to a 2-way protected bike lane and a 1-way street next to it. We are retaining the parking here, but basically that's going to be the section throughout from 31st all the way to Vernon Boulevard. The key here, you guys, is that it's like the street is going to change. The direction of these cars here that you're seeing are going to change, but the bike lane is not. It's going to allow bikes. This is actually the primary purpose of what a bike boulevard is it prioritizes bikes. It's also prioritizing peds and the fact that we're going to have more space. People are going to feel more comfortable walking on the street because it's going to be narrower, and the bike lanes are also going to calm traffic. Giving you a little bit of the details of how this stuff works. You can see instantly the width change that happens here when we do something like this. You've seen it on Crescent, and I believe that's what this is we have a bike lane with a large pedestrian area, and you're going to see a lot more of that in a second. We have larger pedestrian areas at the corners that slow turns and allow people to cross more closely, opening up the areas where we see the most conflicts through daylighting and protecting that pedestrian space, and also making the bike lane safer. And just overall, I really love this shot here of Crescent. It really shows you how much narrower the street is, and how it's no longer comfortable to speed down that street, and that does a lot of good from a safety perspective. Additional elements, this is pretty much it. We're going to be adding all this stuff. We're not going to give you the details on everything here, but we would love to hear where you guys want to see more daylighting. I guess daylighting you're going to see a lot of no matter what, but whether or not there's places for bike racks, we want to hear that. And we will add most of the wayfinding signage that you see in other places. We are going to be adding signal work along the corridor. I don't want to commit to exactly how much, but we can talk about that. Now I'm going to pass it over to my public realm open street person here, Jessica. Hope she's here.
Yep. Hi.
Right on.
Thanks, Ted. And so I think when we get into where the open street is, it's really the goals are to, as Ted said, like continue that two-way cycling, but expand the public space for like permanent public space gains, calm traffic as it moves through the space, and then also sort of ease operations for the open street overall. So it can continue operating as it does with full closures. And it's like a little bit easier to close the street for those full closures and for events. But we're still maintaining that necessary access to the street, right? So balancing all the things. And so in this portion, which we're talking about as the gateway, so this is where we transition from the fully parking protected two-way bike lane that Ted was showing to a little bit more chicaning the traffic. So as vehicles come into this section, they move a little bit slower, and they're sort of forced to do that through that curve. And then offering those contraflow cyclists protection and guidance through the intersections. And again, you can sort of see how that moves through the intersection at 32nd. All while expanding pedestrian space and also maintaining access to all of these driveways that are on this corridor, and maintaining a significant portion of the parking. Next slide. And so what are the materials and what does this look like where we've done it in other places? It's all sort of standard in-house materials that Ted already talked about, but epoxy gravel, the green paint for the bike lanes and for the bike markings, and then standard markings, flux delineators, planters, and other amenities like bike parking. Next slide. And then in where the open street operates currently, really creating a shared street. So it's a similar geometry to the street below, streets that I just spoke about. But the whole thing will be epoxy gravel. And so the whole idea for the shared street is really treating vehicles as guests. Again, They can be there for the necessary business where, you know, they are offering like where they're making deliveries, things like that. And again, looking at what that will be sort of made out of, again, epoxy gravel markings, and then other public space amenities like bike parking and furniture, movable furniture and planters. And so then, you know, looking at the Open Street over the past couple of years, the Open Street started in 2020, as Ted covered at the top. The program became permanent by legislation in 2021. The Open Street here is a weekend full closure. And then we provide additional maintenance and support through our contract with the Hort. And our partner, the 31st Avenue Open Streets Collective, is a community-based organization that manages the Open Street. We really lean on our partners to make sure that all of our public spaces, Open Streets included, are meeting the community needs through both programming and amenities, and also sort of hours of operation. Next slide. And so these are some images from past events. These are from our Trick or Streets back in October. So like a Halloween event where people got to showcase their costumes. And then with that, I'll hand it back to Ted for next steps.
Wonderful. So right here, we're presenting to you. We want to hear your feedback. We plan on implementing, if all goes well, this summer/fall. At the same time, we're going to be developing a phase 2. It's funny, a lot of people talk to me at the workshop about Newtown, and I know there's a lot of other concerns, but there's a lot here tonight, as you've seen us talking through. So we want to take our first step, and especially with you guys, and more workshops, especially as we have the elected support. It's great. We have a bunch of future projects that are listed here. I'm not going to read them all, but there's a lot here, and you know, we're crunched for resources. We're going to do 31st. This is a bold approach, and we're going to keep working. It's somewhere where we see a lot of growth, but hopefully this will go well and we can keep moving on to some other areas. But definitely wanted you guys to know that we're paying attention to that, and we're seeing all the correspondence, and it's very important for us to address it. And I think that's it. That is it. That is our thank you slide. So thank you. We're here for questions.
Thank you, Ted. So I'm glad people are putting their hands up, and I just would like to encourage, because we can't take questions, we have been directed to not take questions from people from the public. I'm going to tell you that you're encouraged to attend, not only attend on the 18th to give your opinion, but if you could put your comments in the chat, they will be noted, and they're important. So thank you for all the public members here that may put comments in the chat. So the order that I see on my screen is Kian, Adam, you, Dan, Amin, Tom. So I didn't see the hands till it just popped up because of the presentation. So we're going to go in that order. I hope it's accurate. So Kian.
Through the chair, Dom, would you like DOT to take down the presentation, or would you like to leave the presentation up?
So thank you, Florence. I'd like the screen the one with the map, with the traffic. Yep, that one right there. Go back one. Yeah.
You know what? I'm going to this one. I'm sorry. I should be listening, but I think this is the one that's best. Does that work for you?
It's good enough. Good enough for government work. Just kidding. Yes, it's perfect.
Yeah, it has all the elements at least, and we can go to other ones.
So and can if you have a question and you want this changed or you want it down during your time, please mention it. Go ahead, Kian.
Yeah, just a quick couple clarifying questions. So number one, when you say the traffic is going to reverse every couple of blocks,
Are you thinking that it'll be done via physical blockers like 39th Avenue, or is it going to be done strictly via paint and signage like Berry Street in Brooklyn?
It'll be, it's a really good question. I don't think we figured that out all the way, but I would 90% say that this is going to be done with physical blockers. The key here is to make it work, you know, and once we get in and we design this, we're going to see what we can and cannot do with fire department, et cetera. But I think that that's most likely it's going to be like 39th.
My other clarifying question, and then I have just one more after that, is are there going to be physical blockers for daylighting, things like bike racks, planters on those pedestrian islands, or is it going to be strictly done via the tan paint?
Absolutely. We've really been only doing that recently with, you know, we've been trying to do our best. It's hard to find elements, but I think this will be easy with bike racks, etc. Yes.
Okay, great. And my last question here, is there any consideration, I don't know if you mentioned it, but any consideration here given to loading zones? So is that going to be a consideration on each of these blocks? I know they're retaining parking on both sides, but are any of those spots going to be repurposed?
Yes, they will be repurposed, and we'll be talking with you guys and using our information from the surveys to determine these places. And also that's flexible. We can always add, and to tell you the truth, there's things that we change on projects that are 5 years old. So that's definitely in the program. How it gets done, we'll continue to talk to you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ken. Adam, please.
Yeah, I have two questions. While I ask my first one, I'm wondering if it's possible, Dom and Florence, if I could share my screen briefly. My second would be much easier if I can share a visual. Is that possible?
I'm not sure if you can. So
Yeah,
Florence,
if you want to give a moment, we'll do a share screen. Mark, please help me do a share screen for Adam Fisher Cox.
Yeah, Adam can.
I have to take this one down first, please.
Yeah, okay, I see the button. Okay, I'll ask my second one first then, because I would like to see that presentation again. But so I'm curious specifically about the intersection of Crescent and 31st here. We'll have two-way bike lanes that are hopefully going to be very popular with this east-west connection meeting here. Let me see here if we can see this on the screen. So I just put together like a proposal for this, but nothing specific about like any details here. But I think this is a big opportunity for an actual protected bike intersection here that kind of avoids some conflict with bikes trying to turn in all these two ways and having to wait for their green light to go straight, then somehow get out of the way of other bikes also going straight to wait for their turn so that they're not conflicting with vehicles. I had also heard there's going to be some formalization of the islands on Crescent Street that are currently paint into concrete. So I was hoping that, before that concrete gets poured, there could be some consideration to something in the world of this where, we're really providing a space for cyclists to be able to clearly make these turns. A lot of places at the intersections, it's a bit of a free-for-all with even some of the best bike lane designs in the city. And this would be a great opportunity to, I think, really pilot something more formal in that way.
It's a great opportunity to have two ways go with each other. So it does open up some of what this is, but it'll be something. But it also it'll probably be fully signalized. So
okay.
Yeah.
I just want to definitely emphasize like some place that's protected with something for like in the area to wait for a turn is really something that I find when I cycle around the city is missing a lot of places. I feel like I'm either in the way of bikes who are trying to get past me, or I'm sitting in a car lane, or in a daylighting spot or something like that. So anything that can be done there would be great.
Please let us know if you know those places, and we'll try to address them.
Yeah, absolutely. My second question was about the transition from the shared blocks at the open street to the bike lane switching sides to the south side of the street on the east side of things. So I was curious, first of all, the reasoning for needing to switch the bike lane side in the first place, and then secondly, how cyclists should transition. I believe they're going to be kind of facing a car lane at that point, and just like what that transition across the intersection is supposed to look like at 35th, I believe. Yeah.
The 35th. Well, at that point, the cyclists will probably be in the roadway, and then they'll be mixing. We probably will have to control that with a signal. All the details haven't been worked out, but it is definitely a problem. But we also see a lot of benefit of moving the bikes to the south side there with the direction of vehicles. So I think that we're on the same page, and like I don't want to get into all the details because these things are very engineering heavy, but what you're saying is definitely something that we are going to address. And I just to add a little bit more on the open street, one of the cool things about how this open street is going to work is that it allows a transition from those two sides. It could maybe feel for those of us who are cyclists that like, what are you trying to do? You're trying to make me switch sides? But actually we're not. We're trying to limit vehicular traffic there. And we're going to, like, especially right at the corner you said, because both of the intersections are going out. So they're going to be able to like have a lot of space there on the roadway, and it will feel safer as far as migrating, moving through the traffic, and hopefully that'll make the open street also just as successful. So it's great.
Thanks very much. And would just like to plug that a fully plaza street for the block for the open street would be great as well, whether it's in the future or immediately. Thanks.
I don't want to call on people.
Dominic, you must be muted. Please unmute Dominic.
Thank you. Thank you. Sorry about that. I was just saying that with all the shuffling, I lost the list of hands order, but I think I did the best.
You, Ma, next.
You, Dan, Amin, Tom, and Nas. So you. Hi, you. Can you unmute?
Great. Yes. Thank you. Thanks, Tom. Thank you for the DOT for presenting. Really appreciate your hard work on this initiative. I just want to express concern with the 31st to 35th or 36th Street portion of the project, where it becomes a shared street. I have ridden the design, the lane on Broadway closer to Herald Square, which I believe is a similar-ish design where it's a bi-directional bike lane shared with cars and trucks. And I have to say that it doesn't feel safe. And that while we hope that the cars will be guests on these streets, drivers, as we all know, they don't exactly drive as either with the best in mind. So I would strongly recommend or suggest that we somehow maintain the protected bike lane all the way through, especially through the open street if possible. I continued riding down Broadway a couple of weeks ago, and then Broadway was shut down for a street fair. And it's just, I'm not sure if it can function both as a throughway for bikes and an open street at the same time if everything is mixed together.
It's oh, sorry, Jessica, go for it.
No, so I was going to say, I think thanks for that. I would like to hear more, maybe in a different context, about some like specific feedback on Broadway. I think the things that we've seen as successful on Broadway are that with the shared street, the cyclists are the sort of pace setters for the corridor. So like it is, everyone is moving slow, and by everyone sort of sharing the space, the whole space becomes slower and a little bit more friendly for everybody. I think the other thing that I will say is through all of these one-way conversions and all these reversals, like we are hoping to diminish volume. So you won't have that sort of through traffic. You'll be you'll still be able to get there if you need to make deliveries, if you need to pick up, drop off, get to your home, get to your school, but like you can't use it as sort of like a way to shoot through the
Understood. Yeah, and I do think that this design is better than the one on Broadway, closer to Hill Square, because I don't believe there are reversals on that portion of
there are
Broadway.
not. No.
Yeah. So I do
Although
think
in our
that
project this year, which is like a similar sort of geometry, we will be reversing between 18th and 19th on Broadway.
I see. Excellent. Great. If we could show the slide with the actual detailed design of that part of the avenue.
This one.
Yes. So, yes, that one or the one before 31st to 33rd. Yeah. So here, I think the main issue. I'm glad we're shortening we're expanding the sidewalks so we can cross the street. That's easier. But there will be cyclists that'll be riding head on into traffic, and that is my main issue with the Broadway redesign. Is that while, and I'm sure what you said is correct, that volumes will be lower, there will at some point you will be riding straight into traffic. And because the roadbed is more narrow, you're actually, I think, from my point of view, escalating the chances of a conflict.
I want to say that I totally understand where you're coming from, and there are some adjustments on here. We are saying that it's everything that Jessica said is absolutely correct. By slowing the vehicles, you do get a better safety load. I think this is one thing that we are going to have to pay attention to this, and we've already changed it a little bit. But we do need to make sure that cyclists feel comfortable moving throughout. So I hear your point, and I would say that it's something that we're going to have to monitor, and please, like, let us know if it doesn't work, and I think we're going to be out there looking at it as well.
So I'm seeing sidewalk expansions here. So to me, it seems like there is room for a protected bike lane here.
There is, but then the idea here is that you want to also give ample pedestrian space. These are the same widths as other places, but we also want to make space that allows for an open street, that allows for conversion of these spaces on other days, and actually gives some space over to pedestrians and local restaurants. Kind of that's the real fruit that bears from the open street. Like, we want people out there enjoying the street. So yeah.
Right. I totally agree. Is there a way that we could do a full closure similar to parts of Broadway closer to Madison Square Park, where there is a protected bike lane and there is the roadbed devoted entirely to pedestrians?
We're going to be looking at that. Right now, we've done the traffic analysis for this, and we want to move forward. It is a small step, but we also need to work very closely with our partners and make sure that we can keep up with the growth of Open Street. So that's my quick response to that. But I will say that it's definitely something we heard at the workshop, and definitely I think we heard it from the last person, actually. But we would like to see that as well. But this is the first step in this.
And I would add. Oh, sorry, Paula. What were you going to say?
I was just going to add that nothing that we're doing here today precludes us from pursuing a fully pedestrianized block in the future. But I think like our intention here is to install this design, monitor, and continue to work with the partners and explore a future fully pedestrianized space in the future if that's what the community wants.
So I'm going to step in here. Your name is Paula?
Yes, that is correct.
So yeah, with the share and with my hosting, I'm finding it that the speakers, square is not popping up all the time. So it's a little awkward from this desk, but I want to switch gears and we can continue the conversation about a fully pedestrianized plaza. soon, and I have some comments on Adam's thing. But I've been confusing a guest. It's Zoran Mamdani, sorry, our assembly person from Astoria, who's been waiting patiently, and I appreciate that. And I know the plan was to give you some time right after the presentation, and I confused your name with our esteemed Amin. So without any further ado, please, let's get you unmuted and hear your thoughts on this presentation, please.
Yeah, absolutely. No worries at all, Dominic. And I'm always happy to be confused with Amin, who is a lovely and esteemed member of our community. I just wanted to pop in here from Albany to share a few words on this proposal. I think before that, though, I've really appreciated the thoughtful feedback from members of our community in both minor and slightly larger alterations to this. I think the major point that I wanted to share today is an appreciation and support for any of these developments that get us closer to the Astoria that I've heard from so many of our constituents, which is one that prioritizes safety above all else. And I think that the changes that make much more of 31st Avenue into one-way traffic, as well as the creation of protected bike lane areas that expands our existing north-south network into one that also includes an east-west network, is very much appreciated. And I think is something that, Ted, you have spoken about this kind of being a first step, and just want to throw my support behind the kind of fully most expansive version of this and the realization of this from beginning to end, and also in the addition of future expansions of that grid. And I think that some of the points of feedback here are ones that really, to me, seem like ones that would kind of go to the heart of the intent here, which is to make this as safe as possible and to ensure that our streetscape starts to look like one where we do not have to worry about losing more constituents to the epidemic of traffic violence that we've seen across the district. So many thanks to everyone at DOT in the creation of this, and many thanks to everyone in the neighborhood who's fighting to make sure that this is at the fullest level of ambition that matches the needs that we have in our neighborhood. So thank you, Dominic, for the creation of space for that, and excited to continue to hear the different points of feedback about how we can bring this further along.
Thank you very much. Good to see you, and good to see you last week as well. And hopefully we'll progress quickly with this installation. So I'm going to continue with committee members' questions, but please, everybody, in the interest of time, keep your questions short and keep your comments or your rebuttals shorter. Ask a question of the presenters, make your statement, and then we're going to try to move on to the next.
Chair, Mr. Chair.
Dan?
Through the chair, Mr. Chair.
Hi, Florence.
Hi, I'm so sorry. I did send you an email that the elected officials' offices
were
supposed to speak. It was supposed to be Zorhan and the other two electeds, because they have other meetings to attend. We're going to lose their attendance, just so you're aware.
Sure. I was kind of...
Refer to the email, please.
Yeah, I have the email. I was, and I'll bring it up. I was kind of paralleling the way we do it in the monthly open meeting, in that we would have the representatives speak later. So I'm happy to switch gears if that's.
Yeah, that's why I sent you the email, because they have other they have to take care of.
Yeah, I appreciate it. So same thing applies. I think we have a representative from Tiffany Caban's office. Can you please
Yes.
give us the good word? And I'm sorry, but give your name first, and then is it Nomi?
Yes. Hi, everyone. Can you hear me all right?
Yep.
Okay. Hi, I'm Nomi, Policy and Advocacy Director for Councilmember Caban. It's great to be here tonight. Thank you all. Thank you to DOT for this great presentation. And yeah, I'm kind of echoing what the Assembly member just spoke about, here to share a little about why the council member is supportive of this project and why she hopes that you all will be too. And she's very sorry she couldn't come herself tonight. She's at another event downtown. But yeah, this project has been a long time coming, and the council member hopes that it will be very successful in bringing greater pedestrian and bike safety, facilitating open spaces and 31st Ave Open Street, and serving as has been talked about, a critical piece of the protected bike lane network in Western Queens. Astoria desperately needs a more central east-west protected bike lane to connect Vernon Boulevard and Crescent Street with more eastern parts of Astoria. We all know that protected bike lanes increase safety and for both cyclists and for all road users. When we've seen far too many crashes in Astoria. And so we're really excited that this is prioritizing cyclists. The open street is a really incredible, thriving community space, and we're really happy to see that this project really solidifies that space and expands it a bit. And even the diverters, they're an incredible tool to increase street safety for all road users, force drivers to drive more slowly, and decrease the chance of a serious crash. So yeah, I mean, we know that the community survey, workshop, and open house were very successful, and this project already has an incredible amount of support. These improvements will save lives, and so we just look forward to working together with all of you to ensure that this project is successful and as ambitious as possible. So thank you all, and thank you for all of the great comments and questions.
Thank you, Nomi. Is Shauna Marlock of Senator Kristen Gonzalez present?
Hi, yeah, I'm here.
Hey, great. Hello,
Awesome.
Shauna.
Well, hello. Just wanted to say thank you all for having me, and like Councilmember Caban, Kristen Gonzalez is, wishes she could be here, but has other commitments, and I'm more than happy to, as her Director of Community Affairs, to speak for our office. We wholeheartedly support the 31st Avenue Open Street with this cycling corridor. It aligns our commitment to fostering vibrant, pedestrian-friendly communities, and also to helping our small businesses thrive. An open 31st Avenue with protected bike lanes wherever possible is a space where, like, all of our residents and our visitors can walk safely, cycle, and share outdoor space with their neighbors. This redesign, it represents a really community-centered approach to public spaces. And, as all of you have probably been hearing, having an east-west cycling connection is a thing that our constituents are, like, consistently calling for. And so, protected bike lanes encourage people to actually use them, unlike the, just painted shared lanes that we have a lot of here in this part of Queens. And it results in healthier people, more active people, and it makes the road safer for not only, like, our kids and our neighbors, but also for the drivers themselves. We have less car fatalities in places where pedestrians are also safer. So, opening the space for more pedestrians and cycling, opens up space for, dining, for street fairs, for a variety of programming. We all love the local artists and performers and businesses that make our communities thrive. And, like, we really just want to celebrate them and give them space in our streets. Additionally, I've personally had a lot of interaction with the traffic diverters, like in Sunnyside, and they're, like, a huge success. They're wonderful. Like, it makes the neighborhood so much more calm and peaceful. And, seeing the successes of, like, these types of traffic calming is just, like, super encouraging, and we'd love to see these implemented in our neighborhoods as well. So, also as, like, a person who lives in this area, and, like, as a mom of, I cycle a lot, so does my husband and my 10-year-old, like, making these spaces safe for, like, our kids and cyclists is, like, a large priority for our office. So thank you for having us.
Thanks, Shauna. And I just want to say that Shauna and Nomi, although we give, preference to the electeds when they appear due to their time schedules, in reality, direct contact from CB1 to you guys personally is probably, more effective, more closer to what we need is your boots on the ground, and you really appreciated. So thanks for your comments. I think, Shauna, you've really brought out the pedestrianism. As you know, our questions admittedly have been predominantly about bicycles, and I think we have to all remember that if this can be a special place for pedestrians, I think everybody will be a winner. Nomi, thank you for your time and your comments too, and I think we're very lucky to have Tiffany Caban and Kristen Gonzalez representing our area. And going, or kind of, would you say, Shauna, contrary to Ted, you seem to imply that we're going to be a lot of signals, but Shauna reminds me that 31st Avenue with the diverters really seems to work with a really minimal amount of traffic signals for what it's worth. So we're going to pick up now with a question from Dan, Tom, Nas, and Amin. Not the imposter Amin. Go ahead, Dan.
Oh, hi there. Yeah, I have two questions, two-part question. One is I'm very concerned about the safety issue, and I'm worried about speeding. Okay, we all talk about cars speeding, but I am a blind pedestrian, and I would be crossing those streets. Now, I can't hear a bicycle unless they're beeping or blowing a horn or something like that. So I would want a thought to putting a signs up that speed limits are not only for cars, or something to that effect. And the other thought is I want to know about the green gravel material. How does that hold up during snow and weather and rain and everything else? Does it fall apart and disappear, or what?
The first question is a really, really good one, and one that we struggle with. It's hard because vehicles are the ones that we're most scared of, and I'm sure you are as well. But I do feel like one of the benefits of open streets is there is a natural calming element to it. I think the two-way bike path will ultimately be a little bit easier for you to navigate, because it'll be really clear where the bicycle is. That makes it easier. And I don't want to give you a firm answer on the miles per hour, because we're playing with that a little bit in the office, but it is something that we're considering. You know, the question is, though, like, realistically, like, how do you gauge? First of all, you can't really apply a speed limit to cyclists. You can, and they've tried it, but radar guns are not as effective. It's a really big problem in Central Park, for example, when you have the guys going like 30 miles per hour or training on the loop. But I think that it is something we need to deal with, and I think that we need to make sure that we're dealing with the intersections as best as possible here. And
I'm not thinking about a number, a speed limit number for bicyclists. I'm not saying it should be 10 miles, 15 miles. What I'm saying is it should be reasonable to the, when you're at an intersection and you see some people there, slow up a little bit, that kind of thing, not just zoom through at your regular speed.
It's so funny because you're absolutely right. That's hard to legislate, though. And I think that some of the things that you see on this plan will lead towards that a little bit more than others. So that's the quick answer. I think it will be helpful.
Just some consideration to me and older people who don't walk too fast.
Yeah.
They're slowly crossing the street and.
Totally. The other question was what? I'm sorry.
I can jump in on that one, Ted. It was the lifespan of the epoxy gravel, I think. Is
absolutely,
that right?
Yeah.
And so it's the same material we use in the bus lanes. So it is designed to be on the street. It's designed to wear in all weathers. It gets plowed all over the city. We have seen the average lifespan is like somewhere between 8 and 15 years, give or take.
It's better than our normal markings. Like this
so
stuff,
it's the same as
really sticks into the ground. It's like an oily plastic. It's pretty wild. It's pretty cool.
Great. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Tom, Ryan?
Okay, I have put some comments. I only got a few minutes. First of all, I want to clarify something. When you talk about bikes, you're talking about pedaled bikes, but we have a problem in this area with all two-wheel vehicles, e-bikes, scooters, razors, what have you, and they're all using the bike. And the behavior is, I mean, I have seen one where you have the protected bike lanes, and the protected bike lanes are not enough, so they ride in the street, one lane that we have for cars. So I just want to bring that in clarification. Let's keep the purists and the violators combined together in this decision making. I'm looking at your map, and I'm wondering about emergency vehicles, local deliveries, Uber drivers, trucks making local deliveries. I don't know how they're going to figure this out, because they will have to keep going round and round to get to 31st Avenue. So that's something that has to be thought out, because it's going to cause traffic jams. It makes sense if it's, you know, and it does get used. I live right at 51st and 31st, so it is a major roadway. Maybe it's other the others. Yes, I can divert, but you know, when you go into this, you have to somehow clarify this to the person who's going into this new zone. And I'm very concerned about emergency vehicles, because they're not going to be able to go up and down and in and out and around if they have to go. The direct line is right across 31st Avenue. And you have a big population there. The other thing about, you talk about double parking, you have a lot of these streets where it's one lane of traffic and the truck or whatever has no place to go. They have to double park. So they're using precious space. Why not have on each block at least one spot, maybe in each corner, where you have a truck loading zone, so the truck does not have to block the space? Because the truck's not going to go down 5-6 blocks down the street to deliver their goods, and that causes a problem. The other thing, what concerns me, and I don't know, I'm probably old school here. You remember the expression, cross at the green, not in between? That's what we have here, especially pedestrians. If everyone's not going to follow the social contract and do what they're supposed to do, stop at the stoplight, stop at the traffic light, wait for the green signal, you know, follow the paths. I mean, you're going to have this bike lane. People are going to be going up and down it, all different things. And we're already having that situation elsewhere. So I'm really asking, as a local person here, really think this out, because this is a great idea, but I see a lot of issues that are going to make it worse. So those are just my comments, and I hope you take them in advisement.
Thanks, Tom. Your comments are definitely appreciated, and you're not wrong that behavior is an important part of all of our, important for every aspect of whatever mode we use to travel around. So we're going to go to Nas now. And Nas, as well as your comments, would you be interested and able to read some of the comments that have been put in the chat? Or why don't we'll take you, Amin, and Shahanaz, and then I'll ask you to do that if you don't mind, Nas. So what are your thoughts first, and I'll ask you to read those after.
Wow, you really dropped that one on me, Tom. I wasn't expecting that. But well, first off, I would just say I love it. I'm excited for it. I do share a little bit of concern that Hugh expressed earlier, especially with the Open Street area, just because obviously it's like a very new thing. We're not seeing too many of these in the city yet. I know Berry Street is the model. I was on Berry when I think it wasn't quite finished yet, so it did feel like a little looser than I would have liked, but it was also just new. I'm wondering if the bike team has any input on maybe some stuff that they learned from the Berry Street implementation and how that impacted thoughts around this 31st Ave implementation.
I'll say Berry Street's actually quite different than this, because it's like some of it is two-way. it's a wider street. And really what we were tackling here is you also have bike lanes on adjacent streets. So one of the things that we did here was we incorporated a lot more protected bike lanes in here. And on the open street, we're trying to get the bike lanes as close as possible to one another. And it's a shorter area. So I feel like it's a lot different. I've also ridden Barry and I think it works fine, but I don't think it's the best context for this. I think that I want to say this, I'm not trying to pull a fast one here. We are going to be watching this and looking, because this is much more different than Barry, because people who are speeding through on Barry are like, they would much rather be on Kent Avenue, most cyclists. So this is a different kind of context. We need to make sure that we're creating exactly what the last guy said, creating the loading zones that are regular. I don't think we have the space here. So we're going to have to monitor that. And I would say it's just different. I think Broadway is a little bit more of the model, but we're also you'll see a couple of changes here, mostly that the bike lane's a little bit closer to one another, and the gateways, the in and outs are a little bit better. But we might have to protect it if people are double parking it. Does that answer your question, Nas?
Yeah, no, that's definitely good to hear. And the comparisons and where you expect things might be different are also good to hear. Dom mentioned, I'm quickly scanning, and I think a concern here just a little bit is, if you're not already familiar, mopeds are not allowed on, bike lanes and these kinds of treatments. So I think there's just a sense of like, people are hoping that good behavior trumps all, and that we don't have issues with like smaller vehicles using it as, a speedway for deliveries, and then, not creating extra conflict by not giving the space to the loading zones or the trucks that inevitably would need a loading zone, because, there are several restaurants and other businesses along the corridor. But I think you've spoken to that quite a bit, but if you have anything else to add, that might be helpful for people that are just kind of following along in the chat.
It's the number one issue that we're seeing with bike lanes right now. And we do need to get the legal vehicles off the road. We're working a lot with PD. We've got an education campaign out there. There's not a simple answer. Definitely the hardest thing that we have to face, but we're going to be monitoring this. I think this is one of those places that hopefully by creating the two-way path on the side, there will be a little bit more respect. And to the blind pedestrian who was talking earlier, the idea that like there's going to be cues here for people to slow down, that hopefully all those work. So I understand more than anything, and we're empathetic towards that, and we're trying to deal every day with this.
And just a final quick hit. This is more of a PSA kind of a thing, because it's something we also often see in the chat and in person as well, is that and correct me if I'm wrong, but it is a matter of fact that, when you guys come up with these designs, that you do consult with emergency services, including the business, like not just the businesses for loading zones, but emergency services, to check that, hey, is this a route that you need? What kind of access do you need to it? Like, do you run those by FDNY and such?
Absolutely. We're doing that now, just so you guys understand. Part of the bike lane width allows for a vehicle to get down that bike lane. So that's actually a benefit to the person who was talking about earlier. I can't get into all of it. And frankly, these are ongoing conversations, but I do want you guys to know that these are things that are really important to us. We wouldn't be able to put in bike lanes if they were making it impossible to get to streets. So we're actually incorporating a lot of these things into the designs.
That's really good to hear. And I will hand it off with that, as there's some other questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Nas. And thanks for reading those comments. Amin, please. The real Amin, are you there? So it's Amin, then Shahanaz, and then Kian and Adam had their hands up. I don't think Kian spoke on this subject yet. Amin, are you here?
I don't
So
think we.
Amin sometimes does have to leave early. He may have. Amin, if you come back, let us know. Shahanaz,
Hi, Dom. How are you? How everyone?
hey, how are you?
Oh, good, thank you. I have a quick comment regarding Dan. Dan was talking about the safety for pedestrians, especially the people who he said blind. What about if they can install something in the street to make slow the bike? The same like when we install it for the cars. It's like bombed or I see the metal stuff like something because safety is really important. The other thing also regarding Tom, he mentioned like you have not only the people who do bike with pedals, you have the people with a scooter, you have the people with motorcycle. The speed is big different. What the rules for this also? Who can use the bike lane? This is my two comments. Thank you.
We have all the rules and we can share those. There's basically, I don't want to get into all of it, but basically if they have operable pedals, they're allowed to use the bike lane. The speeds
Is
are
that written, Ted, is that written down somewhere that the mopeds that don't have operable pedals are not allowed to use the bike lane?
Yes, those are.
Yeah, I dropped the link on the chat if you all want to see what the various definitions and whether they're allowed or not in a bike lane. I dropped it in the chat again.
Because the electric scooters do not have pedals, Ted.
Those are illegal. I mean, look at the thing. It's actually not that simple. Some of them are illegal that are out there. It's a very difficult question. And I think that like I need to look at that document as well, which I'm not going to pull up right now. But
so everybody, Paula put that in the chat. I've clicked on it already. It's easy to click on it. Shahanez, let's keep this conversation to 31st Avenue and not make it a discussion about about legality, because I will go on all night about the mopeds.
Yeah.
So just out of
Well,
respect.
who would enforce it anyway?
Well, that's part of the conversation that we would be happy to have, but let's not have it now. Let's stay with Ted's presentation of the 31st Avenue. So Shahanaz, you had two parts to your question. One about, sorry.
Slow down the bike.
Yeah. For example, Ted, just to continue Shahanaz's comment, we saw a plan from Adam earlier, which I'm not saying it was part of the plaza, but it was maybe in the plaza. Is your plan to, just like cars are encouraged to take a 90-degree turn and not a swoop, are the bike installations designed, engineered to force the bikes to stop and make a 90-degree turn, or are they like Adam's almost aerodynamic plan that he showed us earlier?
Well, I think we'd like to accentuate the signals at the intersections for cyclists, and that's something that you're going to see here with this plan. There aren't any turns, so it's a little bit different.
Well, there are turns onto and off to 31st.
That's usually not the point where cyclists can't take turns that fast. It's really dangerous. That's usually not the fastest point for them. But like, I do think it's a good idea, and it's something that we've looked at. Some of the stuff, and we didn't get lucky by one of these presentations having it, but we'll do these bars. We'll do like speed bumps for cyclists that are basically rumble strips that we will add, and we will we will hear, I will say this right now, we will hear from you guys complaints about certain places, and we will be responding. As you guys know about Crescent, this has been a dialogue, and we are like, I'm dead serious about this. It's really important to get that, get those things right. And there are tools. And yeah, we want, one of the things that I just want to explain to everybody here, that the two-way bike lane, when you have, and it was kind of like what was shown earlier, I'm just going to show this section really quickly. You see that how the bikes are together there. There is some friction there that's actually kind of good for cyclists. They're not mixing with vehicles. They're not trying to go up, like ride with cars. They're actually dealing with cyclists and pedestrians. So some of the issues will be solved. I'm not saying we're going to solve them all. These are the biggest issues, but this bike lane is one of our safest ones that we see.
Right.
Crestmead, for example, is one of those things that, like, if we were jamming a bike lane in there and there was all sorts of people using it, they would be getting hit. There would be crashes with cars and there would be crashes with pedestrians.
Yeah.
Here, it's a very clear separation, which is helpful.
Yeah, no, for sure. And you're reminding me of 34th Avenue in Jackson Heights, which is not delineated at all, and there's a lot of speeding bikes. And with your green stripes going through this for the majority of it, yeah, I get it. I was just suggesting that any turns in the plaza area, which I think is basically 31 to 35, would really consider the pedestrian above any efficiency in bikes. I mean, traffic engineers for years made this, their goal was throughput and, how many seconds to walk across a 4-lane highway, ... and keep the cars moving. If we make that same mistake with bike transport, we're going to have the same problem. So let's learn from those mistakes. I don't want to file this under the "you don't have to tell me" category, Ted, but basically it's just a thought. So I want to move on, if that's okay, Shahnaz and Ted. I want to move on to Kian, please.
Yeah, these aren't questions, but just more suggestions that I think might be worth taking note of. For one, I think that the area west of 21st Street up to Vernon Boulevard is a flood zone. So I'm just wondering if maybe in the future you might consider things like bioswales or tree planters that can mitigate some of the storm drainage. Obviously, that's probably not a project now, but just something I think to keep on your radar. My other thing I just want to recommend here is you should have eyes on 14th Street and 31st Avenue. 14th Street was a prior one-way, very wide, that they converted into two-way, and it is a really, really wide intersection. So any bulb cutouts or sidewalk extensions, I think, would make a big difference, especially for pedestrian and cycling safety. The other one I want to point out is if you interpret 31st Avenue to go all the way to the water instead of ending where Vernon Boulevard begins, there is a crosswalk there that was recently installed, 31st Avenue in Vernon. And as it stands, it's pretty dangerous. Cars are not often stopping. I understand it's a truck route, but I think curb extensions there would make an absolutely huge difference. Again, I don't want you to overlook that because technically 31st Avenue ends, I guess, a bit before that if you don't consider it to run all the way to the bike lane on the water. But I think it would make a massive difference if you were to create curb extensions there to shorten the crossing distance, especially across Vernon, where a lot of people are going to and from on the waterfront. Just wanted to make those recommendations.
Good comments. Thanks.
Yes, good comments, Keen, especially on the longer crossing of the bike boulevard. So, Adam, your hand is up. Was up.
Yeah, I had another question about accessibility in general. One thing I noticed is that a lot of the older painted pedestrian areas, medians, things like that, have tactile pavers in them, much like actual concrete sidewalks do, to indicate where the edge of them are. And that's not a thing that it seems that is done anymore. I'm wondering if that's something that can be done here, or like a policy change for painted pedestrian areas or something like that. But I know in Sunnyside they do have them. In some places in Manhattan they do have those tactile pavers, but not at any of the painted sections in Astoria.
We can look into it. I don't know why. I believe we still have to put them in, but Paula,
Yeah,
tell.
no, it is a federal ADA policy that we did not add the tactile warning strips unless we move the signal infrastructure to the pedestrian, like the painted pedestrian space. So that is the new policies, and as a result of that, the federal policy, we're not adding tactile warning strips to these painted pedestrian spaces.
My understanding is that would be usually be put in a curb cut area, the truncated domes.
Yeah, that is correct. But these are not curb cuts. I think that's what Paul is saying, that if we built it out, we would have to add them, but right now we are not. These things change though.
Thanks. I just also had just last quick suggestion before I'm done for the night. But as you look into phase 2, I would love to also see you consider the connection from 31st Avenue to Paseo Park on 34th Avenue. I recently rode from the open street over there, and it's actually a fairly nice ride for most of it, except for a couple pretty horrible intersections around Northern Boulevard. So some like key spot treatments there would, I think, connect them pretty easily in a way that would be amazing as phase 2 comes together. So I'm just hoping that can be part of the scope there.
Great. We'll look into it. Next. I don't know who's next.
Sorry, I didn't know I was muted. Adam, are you finished? I think so. Thank you for your comments. Tom, Ryan, please.
Yes, could you go back to the map showing the entire length of the proposed project? Yeah, I know it's under the future scope area, but just to bring in mind, when you consider that area, you have the Woodside houses, Boulevard Gardens, you have Junior High School 10, Bryan High School, and PS 151, all in that little area. So that's going to deserve a lot of attention when you get to that point.
Paul and I were just talking about that earlier today. Gives us some time to work on it.
Okay.
Yeah, that is the reason. One of the reasons that we cut the scope for this year's project is because we do want to engage with the schools and the houses in a lot more depth than we have thus far. So yes, it is on our mind.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you. So I think we've taken all our comments. Sorry if it's a tough read because there's a band above the shared screen. Maybe we'll end the share, Ted.
Happily. All right.
Not feeling generous anymore?
I'm listening to my kids crying in the other room.
Well, we don't hear them, so
Hello? It's true.
We
Not yet.
believe you.
You might in 5 more minutes.
Okay. No, so noted. It is 8:53. I want to thank all the DOT representatives, and I'm impressed by the length of. I wonder if Nicole is still here, if she wants to say a few words. She's very welcome to.
No,
I
I'm
thought
here.
you were going to leave at my invite.
No. I just wanted to say thank you to the Transportation Committee for allowing us to give this presentation. And I saw many of you at the open house that we did last week. So we're just, so grateful to all of the people that have turned out to give us a lot of feedback. And, I think Ted had mentioned it earlier that, this is a very big first step. But, once we get the markings on the ground, we don't mark the street and walk away. This is an iterative process with signs and, granite blocks and, Jersey barriers and adding bike signals. Like, we went back to Queens Boulevard, right, which is kind of the signature Vision Zero project for the agency over the past 10 years and the incredible safety gains that we made there. And to this day, we still work with local businesses. We modify the signage to make sure that, loading zones are where businesses need them. Sometimes we relocate them and we end up giving back community parking. So, the most important thing is taking that big first step in delivering safer streets for mostly pedestrians, but also cyclists and the community at large. So thank you again, Community Board 1 Transportation Committee.
Thank you very much, Nicole. And I'm going to do an obnoxious thing right now. I'm going to say that my wife is my favorite Safe Streets advocate. She's not here. She's in Florida with her mother, but Nicole, many, many years ago, before she was the DOT commissioner of Queens, she walked this little kid over there. Say hi, Jamie, who's now 16, Nicole. So that's the kid you walked to school. She's in my office here. So that's the, so it's been probably 11 years, and you somehow, my wife got you and the commissioner, whose name I don't remember. Apologies to just to show the cars parked on the street and the lack of signals on that walk. Still a lot of issues, but we appreciate all your hard work and all your team's hard work. And I just thought coincidentally, since she's sitting over there, I'd show you. So thanks for all your hard work. And Ted, it goes quickly. So we're going to move on to some really exciting capital expense issues in our meeting. So thanks to the DOT, and hope to see all you. And yeah, thanks for a strong and significant presentation. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, so that was a long meeting and not over. Committee members, thank you to public members who have logged in to see those two presentations and our operations. You're very invited to the June 18th public meeting, which is in person at Astoria Manor on Astoria Boulevard, just east of Crescent Street, to voice any comments that you have about any of the presentations today, and also about any new business that you may have. Your comments are appreciated, and they mean probably more to a lot of the members on the community board than a lot of the elected representatives' speeches, which are mainly calendared and of a certain interest. So thank you for that. Let's all undo our, open our mics, please. Nas and Tom and everyone. And Florence, are you there?
Yes, of course.
Florence, what's our time frame and our, if I could ask you, our goal with the expense or the capital expense budget? I have made a PDF of the list of items, but I don't know what the time frame is. I believe this is something that has to get tackled in the fall. And if I'm not, wait, can I just finish? And if I'm not wrong, I would like to actually show the PDF of to all the members and have them. I would actually like to ask them to, before the June 18th meeting, have them email a priority list from 1 to 10 of these suggestions of how our funds are spent. But go ahead, Florence, please advise.
Okay. So each and every community board member has received already via email a copy of the capital and expense list, along with the booklet, which is on our resource page explaining what the capital and expense budget is. I sent a full explanation of what the responsibilities of the board members are via email twice to all the board members. What your job is in each committee as to how it has been handled in the past is we have items. Oh, let me see if I can grab a list.
I'm going to share. I'm sharing the list as you speak.
Please go ahead.
Go ahead. Please go ahead.
So we have the project capital and title for fiscal year 25. On that list, we have over 32 items. What your job is to do is to look on this list at the DOT items and see if your committee still supports these items. All of these items listed are long-term projects, which means some of them could be on this list for 10 years, but they're not accomplished. But if you remove them, then they never will be accomplished. What you have to do is decide whether or not you want to leave them on the list. The next step is at the October meeting. If any of these items are desired to be moved up to a higher ranking, you do that at the October meeting. Making a list of 1 to 10 for you will not do you any service It will only give you extra work to do. This order on that list, which you have, is the exact order of the list. What you want to do is confirm first that these are valid requests. And then after you confirm that these are valid requests, it's whether you're going to leave them on the list or not. If there are any new items, normally the new items would go at the end of the complete capital and expense list. And then at that time, you would negotiate. Continued support is something completely separate. CS means continued support. Those are items that are paid for, but not finished. We leave
Understood.
continued support on because we want every single nail, every single screw, every single item completely finished. If the item is not finished, it will remain on the list under continued support until it is completed. There is one item on here which I want to bring to your attention, which I'm going to report about in my my report under the district manager's report. For many years, our office has received requests about the Robert F. Kennedy Bridge, known as the Triborough Bridge, and a bike lane or bike access because of the fact that there are only steps there. Our office has been advocating with MTA for that item. That item is an MTA item. It is not a DOT item. So therefore, that would not stay on this list. That project is going to be beginning in June, and I will be reporting on that under my report as district manager. So the bike access lane will be converting the steps to a ramp, and the whole walking path on the Triborough Bridge will be recreated. So that can come off, so you know.
But where would you know what number that is? I don't see MTA mentioned anywhere
Hold
here
it,
in the
it's not
32.
MTA. It's listed wrong. Hold a moment.
Oh, okay.
Let me find it. I wasn't prepared to do this today, so please forgive me. It'll take me a moment.
Doesn't seem to be searchable.
Create bike, number 32, create bike access lane onto RFK Bridge. It's listed under DOT. That is incorrect. Our office has been advocating for about 5 years, no more, because COVID is 5 years. About 7 years we've been advocating for that because I've gotten phone calls in the office regarding that RFK access. You have to carry your bicycle up the steps in order to go to Randall's Island and such.
Yep. And to the Bronx.
Yeah, so that's going to be corrected.
The only good thing about those steps is it keeps the mopeds off the RFK Bridge.
That's not going to be the case in the future. They're there anyway now, Dominic.
They're
in
not.
The
they're
lane.
not. I've seen
On
them.
the driving lane.
Oh yeah, well that's fine. That's where they should be.
Well,
They shouldn't be on a 4-foot pedestrian path.
And they explained it when they met with me, and it was only meant to be, when it was built, it was only meant to be a pedestrian path. People didn't know it would go in the direction. That's why they're moving forward with the remedy.
Thank you very much. So what's the so in terms of the timeline,
September and October, the most important months.
Okay.
You can look at that. Everybody has received this with instructions via email.
Okay.
What you want to do is confirm you want to keep these things.
So sure. Thank you, Florence. So committee members, I would like everybody to look at this list. You got it in an email from Florence. It's basically page 1 and 2 of this 5-page PDF, and email to Florence, Evie, and myself your comments. Florence, I don't want to get into the logistics right now, if you don't mind, of how to get the emails through. The important thing is I want comments on these 32 items in terms of the order, and if there are any other comments and any other suggestions, any other capital budget potential items.
May I help you?
You may help me.
You wouldn't do the order yet.
No, I'm not asking for the order. I'm asking for comments.
You
Was
did.
I not clear?
Okay. I won't continue. Thank you. I'm sorry.
Sure. Okay. Thanks. So basically that's, I wasn't sure, team, at the start of this meeting exactly what our action was, because I got back to the office very late and I didn't have time to look at this. And so I'm just kind of winging it, but it seems like we have until October to conclude this, which is good. So are there any other items of new business? Anyone?
Dom, if I could just make a suggestion, since yeah, I think this, we weren't prepared in advance to like totally get into the weeds on this capital budget list. Maybe, I don't know if you want to schedule at some point in the future a meeting that's dedicated to this for open discussion, or at the very least, maybe before we all just kind of inundate Florence and or Evie with changes or comments, maybe we consolidate as a committee, like, okay, here's what we want.
No, for sure.
Here's what we want to take off. And then if there's any additions, maybe then that's the time, where we have like a short committee meeting dedicated solely to discussing this, or not if it's not necessary. And then, and then that can kind of go off to the district manager and such.
Naz, can I follow up on you, please? Is that okay?
Yeah, sure.
In order to make your job much easier, what I would say to all of you is look at this list, understand historically where it came from, and see if you agree that historically it's worth keeping these items first.
Exactly.
That would be the first step. Then, if you say, well, all these items are terrific, yes, they're necessary, you're going to leave them, and you can do that as a group. And then once you do that, you can have a special meeting to debate the new items that you want to put on.
Understood.
Certain things are, like, let's say, I'm going to give you a fake item. Let's say we wrote a letter with Adam Fisher Cox regarding the bulb outs for crosswalks. That would not be a capital and expense item. That is something that we already wrote a letter on, and that would not be. But let's see, let me find full street, like the full street reconstruction of 32nd Street off Ditmars Boulevard to the dead end, number 3. This is a dire need. These people's homes have been flooding for over 50 years, and this still to this date has not been remedied. I think it's been on the capital and expense list for some 8 years now.
So it's just been creeping up.
Yeah, this goes back to Costa Constantinides when he was in office.
Sure. And then Florence, page the expense budget on page 3 and 4.
Yes.
This is less extensive projects.
Yes.
What's the committee's?
The difference is these are
I understand the difference. My question is, what's the committee's direction on these, if I could? Are we to rank these also? Is that or to?
Yes, you don't rank them. What you would do is look at what's on there first, see if you want to keep them, and then see if there are other things you want to add. So, for example, under DOT, parking and traffic flow study for Columbus Triangle area.
What number are you looking at?
It's number 38, I believe. I have an old list. I don't have an accurate list.
38 is concrete trash bins, Astoria Park.
Oh, no, it's 37. It's 37.
Okay, yep. Parking and traffic flow study.
So let's say there was another section of Astoria that you wanted a study done on. You would add that, and that you would say, our committee has decided that we would like to have a study at ABC area. That would go at the end, and then when it would get placed for deliberation would be at the October full board meeting. That's where you would deliberate with the other board members. You would hand in your request. It would be added to the list as number 57. And then at the end of the meeting, I mean, at the new meeting in September, please forgive me, I'm tired. At the new meeting in September, you would talk about it, and then at the October meeting, that's when the whole board would come together to deliberate, as you've done every year.
Understood. All right, great. Thank you very much, Florence, for your.
Was that clear? Am I good?
Yeah, it was. Appreciate it. Yep.
That's pretty much.
I have a quick question. And is there a limit to how many items can be on these lists? I mean, you're 32 on one and 50 something on the other. Is there a limit, like 100 on each, or is this?
Our chair does not believe in limits. The truth of the matter is anything under 25, it takes years and years and years to get addressed. Now, occasionally, what will happen is you'll have number 28 and your council person will pick up number 28 for participatory budget.
Right.
But really the first 10 to 15 are the most important items. Anything of real terrific substance to the community board must be I would say in the top 15.
Okay.
But there's already 32 on one list and 50 something on the other.
I have no control over that. You have to discuss that with your chair. That's how the chair's desire for this to look. I only,
Sure. As
follow
sure. As obviously, Dan, as time goes by, things don't get done and more things are needed. They don't bump something off the list, but they get added to the list. So I'm going to stop sharing unless anybody wants me to keep sharing. Going once? Because I am sharing, right?
Yes, you are.
All right. I have stopped. So good. So let's move on. It is 9:12. Any other new business? Any old business? Probably should have done that in the other order. Rod? Okay. If no, what do we hear? Anyone? Can anybody?
Motion?
Shahanaz.
No motion is necessary. Just good night.
Oh.
Okay. Thanks, Rod. Okay, everybody. Thank you. And thanks, Shahanaz. And thank you, everybody. And we'll see you on June 18th. And thank you, Neil.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, everybody.
Bye.
Cheers.